This tutorial will guide you through the process of completing a CAREC petition. Whether you're a behavioral health professional, a system partner, or another petitioner, our goal is to help you understand what information is needed and what to expect from the court's review process. We'll walk through the purpose of the petition, the type of information to include, and how to approach this process with confidence, even if you don't have every detail. Let's get started. Let's look at the steps for completing a petition. Consider how the individual may meet eligibility requirements, which we will review in a moment. Identify the appropriate county and court to file the petition in. A petition can be filed in the county where the respondent resides, is found, or has a pending civil or criminal court proceeding. Fill out the forms electronically or hard copy. File the petition according to your county's process, keeping in mind that there are no filing fees for CARE. This may be done in person or via mail, and many counties have an e-filing option. System partners may be able to complete the petition themselves, provided they are eligible petitioners, but they can also be a referral source, working with other eligible petitioners, including county behavioral health. Note that as petitioner, you are the person asking the court to start CARE Act proceedings. The respondent refers to the person who you are asking the court to connect with services and supports. On the petition form, you will be asked to include which petitioner type you are. A petitioner could include lay individuals like a family member, roommate, or the individual themselves. A petition can also be filed by a number of system partners. Note that in many instances, the eligible petitioners include a designee or individuals at the organization that can complete a petition. A designee of the director of a hospital could, for example, include clinicians or social workers. For a complete list of eligible petitioners and other resources, see the QR code at the end of this video. There are two different options to file a petition, depending on who you are and what information you have. Let's talk through the options. Option 1 is a general petition process that will apply to most petitioners. Use this path if you're not a licensed behavioral health professional, for example, family members or first responders. Step 1 is fill out the CARE petition form. It lets you explain your observations in your own words. Step 2, you must include one of the following options to support your petition. Either the CARE 101 form, which is a declaration from a licensed behavioral health professional who has examined the person in the last 60 days or has tried multiple times. They must believe the person may meet CARE eligibility criteria. Note that for the purposes of this form, this includes nurse practitioners and physician's assistants. The other option to support the CARE 100 form would be other documentation, which includes evidence that the person has had at least 2 intensive treatments, one within the last 60 days. We'll talk more in detail about this option later in this tutorial. Option 2 would be the streamlined process for licensed behavioral health professionals. Use this path if you are a licensed behavioral health professional, which could include members of the county behavioral health agency. The CARE 102 form combines the petition and the declaration from the licensed behavioral health professional into one document. In it, you should describe what you've observed and why you think the person may be eligible for care. Regardless of which options you use, provide enough detail for the judge to decide whether the case should proceed, not to prove everything. If the judge believes there is a reasonable basis, they may request more information or begin the formal CARE process. Just document what you know and keep the focus on what you've personally seen or learned. The petition forms will ask for information about the petitioner, information about the respondent, and information about a court referral, if applicable. The bulk of these forms focus on capturing information related to the individual potential eligibility. Let's look at each of these. As a petitioner, you'll be asked to provide your name and contact information. You'll also need to describe your interactions with the respondent. Note that if you're filling out the CARE 100 form, you'll be asked to indicate what type of petitioner you are. Check all the boxes that apply to you. If you're a licensed behavioral health professional, you'll be asked to provide information on professional credentials, timing of treatment and last examination or attempt to examine, and a basis for opinions stated in the petition. You'll also be asked for information about the respondent. You may not know all of this information, but provide what you can and what you think would be helpful, especially in locating the individual. Contact information could include their name and age, approximate is fine, information about how to contact them, including a possible location, and any language or accessibility needs. For example, do they need help with reading, hearing, or understanding English? Additional information that could be asked, depending on the form, includes a disability requiring accommodation, if the respondent is a regional center client, current or former military, or a member of an Indian tribe, or receiving services from a tribal health agency. Information about an involved juvenile court jurisdiction, or information about a court-ordered conservatorship. Again, you may not know all this information, and it may not be relevant to the respondent. Just include what you know to be applicable. You'll also be asked to include information if the petition is being filed in response to a referral from another court proceeding. Include this information to the extent you know it. Most questions in the petition are meant to help the judge decide if the person meets or may meet eligibility criteria. I'll be speaking to each of these with some examples of each shortly. If you're a lay individual, such as a family member, first responder, or roommate, includes clear, specific observations and relevant details that could help the court make an informed decision. If you're a behavioral health professional, you can provide additional clinical information, insights, and details that will help determine eligibility. Let's spend a little time on what to include in the petition forms to document eligibility. First, when you are noting the diagnosis on these forms, you may only have historical diagnostic information or even provisional or preliminary diagnosis. That's okay. Just note what you are aware of in terms of the individual's diagnosis or diagnoses, including if there is a co-occurring substance use disorder. If diagnosis is unknown, document observed behaviors. Another key element that supports eligibility across the forms is that the person is experiencing a serious mental disorder. These are the components to document in support of this assertion. First, noting that the mental disorder is severe in degree and persistent in nature. This is where you can speak specifically to the severity of their symptoms you're observing. You see here examples of some of these symptoms, speech, and behaviors you may want to note, including how the illness may be impacting the individual's insight and judgment. With regards to the mental disorder being persistent in duration, note for how long you have observed these symptoms and any knowledge of when the individual was first diagnosed. The second area that supports the assertion of a serious mental disorder is behavior that is interfering with the individual's activities of daily living, or ADLs. Some key examples of how you might document this are noted here, related to self-care and day-to-day functional tasks. The third supporting assertion is that without treatment, support, and rehabilitation, the individual will not be able to maintain stability or independent functioning. This is where you could note their history of housing instability and challenges with social and community functioning. Now moving to the additional requirements called out in the petition forms. Noting that the individual is currently enrolled in outpatient treatment, they are not clinically stabilized. Is the individual declining mental health services even intermittently, or even despite participation in treatment, they're not stabilizing? The next requirement relates to your assessment of the individual's likelihood of surviving safely in the community without supervision. This includes documenting your observations of the individual's deteriorating condition. If you don't have the information or observations regarding the individual's deterioration, you do have the option to note why you believe services and supports may prevent a relapse or deterioration. The final pieces of information you will need to document is that care is the least restrictive alternative of treatment options for the individual and how care might help the individual with regards to their stabilization and overall recovery. This is where you could note what other treatments or programs haven't been successful and provide recommendations for other outpatient models of care. For individuals who may be already served in similar treatment models but have not stabilized, note your recommendations for how the CARE Act may enhance their care. Remember that there are two options for completing a petition. We've largely been talking about information that could be included in the Care 100, Care 101, or the Care 102 forms. Remember, if you're completing a Care 100 form, you need to work with a licensed behavioral health professional to complete the Care 101 form, which will contain many of the details we've just discussed. Or you can use alternative evidence that the respondent was detained for at least two 14-day holds or hospitalizations, the most recent period within the past 60 days. You can either include a declaration in the Care 100 form itself, acknowledging you have personal knowledge of these hospitalizations, or attach a document that provides evidence. What are examples of evidence? Documented evidence from the facility where the respondent was retained, a copy of the certification of intensive treatment, hospital discharge paperwork, signed declaration from the petitioner if they have personal knowledge of the detentions, a signed declaration from a witness or someone that has had personal knowledge of the detentions. The judge has broad discretion when reviewing the petition. The goal is to provide sufficient information in the petition, including in this declaration, evidence, or other documentation, for the court to determine that the individual meets or may meet the eligibility standard. Having evidence of an intensive treatment is one of the possible requirements for the petition, but remember that it's not an eligibility requirement for someone to participate in care, meaning they may be eligible for care even if they have not had recent intensive treatments. So what happens to the petition after it's filed, and what is your role? Let's track how it may go, noting that there might be some variations in each case. After you file the petition with the appropriate court in your county, it will go to the court to make a preliminary determination or prima facie that the individual may meet eligibility criteria. If the court thinks that the petition does indicate potential eligibility, it will order the county to investigate and file a report. And the petitioner will receive notice that the report has been ordered, but not necessarily the contents of that report. Note that at that point, the county will be encouraged to engage the individual voluntarily in services and may be granted a continuance if they think voluntary engagement is viable. If the county's report indicates the person is eligible and they don't engage voluntarily in services, the court will set an initial appearance. This is where you, the petitioner, come back in. At the initial appearance, the original petitioner should be present or the case may be dismissed. Thus far, many courts are allowing remote appearances. You can make a statement at the initial appearance, and at that point, county behavioral health will take over as petitioner. There may be a few questions you're thinking about. Why should I petition or refer someone to care? Petitioning ensures that the county can make a connection to offer services regardless of care eligibility. Referring someone to care is acknowledging that someone would benefit from services. What if I am unsure if the person is eligible? You don't need to have the exact reasons for someone to meet eligibility criteria. Just explain why you believe they do meet criteria. If someone is already in outpatient treatment, are they eligible for care? Yes, a person is potentially eligible if they are not clinically stabilized, whether or not they are in ongoing voluntary treatment. Where do I file a care petition? A petition can be filed in the county where the respondent resides, is found, or has a pending civil or criminal court proceeding. Look up the court in your county that processes care petitions. You may submit by mail or hard copy. Many counties have an e-filing option. Remember that filing fees for care are waived. What clinical information can I share with county behavioral health during the care process? The CARE Act directs healthcare providers who have filed a care petition or submitted a 101 mental health declaration to share with the county behavioral health any information, including protected health information, or PHI, relevant to the county's reporting requirements related to the petition or the provision of services to the respondent. The law also allows providers to share PHI with county behavioral health that is relevant to the care process, even if the provider did not file a petition or a Care 100. On the CARE Act Resource Center, we have collected materials specific to petitioners, including information about petitions and general information about care and the care process. Scan this QR code or search in our resource library for resources for petitioners.